Hello viewers, welcome to our next lecture of economic development. As in our previous lectures, we are discussing that what are the characteristics of the developing countries. So today we will conclude the characteristics of the developing countries, as we have discussed so many characteristics in our previous lectures, and today we will conclude our this topic, which is based on the characteristics of developing countries. So now let's start our today lecture. One of the major characteristics of the developing countries is that in developing countries the population growth rate is very high. The reason behind is that there is no family planning in the developing countries, or people are not willing to adopt the family planning culture, and there is a tradition of early age marriages which is increasing the population growth rate. And the next characteristic for the developing countries is that dependence on the export of primary goods. Like we have mentioned in our previous lecture that agriculture is the main occupation of the developing countries. So in agriculture sector they are producing the primary goods or the raw material. So they are exporting only the primary goods, which is in return giving them less revenues. The next characteristic is that low literacy rate. As in case of developing countries, people have not enough money in order to fulfill their basic needs. So how they can send their children to school for education? So the developing countries are facing lack of literacy. The next characteristics is that budget deficit. Budget deficit means that when your expenditures are greater than your revenues, and most of the time developing countries are facing budget deficit because they are unable to meet the revenue or the target revenues in the form of taxes. So they have to take loan from some other countries or from their domestic resources in order to meet the revenue and expenditure gap. The next one is weak international relation. As developing countries have very weak economy, so because of this weak economy they also have weak international relation with some other countries. They have not enough power to influence the decision of any other country. And the last characteristics of the developing country is external dependence. External dependence means that developing countries cannot make decision about their own countries. They are being pressurized by some other foreign forces, and they are interrupting in the decision of other countries. Like in case of Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, there are some other forces who force them to take certain decisions which are benefited or which are beneficial for them. So in order to fulfill their own motives, they force developing countries to take certain decisions. So in case of developing countries, major decisions are being taken by some other countries which are have more income, or which have more power in form of economy and in the form of defense. Okay, so these are the characteristics for the developing countries.